Be me. Name is Vernon. 38 years old, senior systems engineer at Cloudvance Technologies. Sitting in a dark server room at 3 a.m. Surrounded by blinking lights and the hum of machines. Trying to resurrect a company from the dead. My phone has 47 missed calls. The CEO, the CTO, clients, even lawyers. Everyone wants answers I don't have. Because the answers died 3 days ago. When Ashton deleted our production servers. All of them. Every database, every backup, every piece of customer data. Gone in 30 seconds. One command, entered by someone who shouldn't have had access. Who didn't understand what he was doing. Because nobody was allowed to teach him. Technical knowledge was exclusionary now. Explaining things was gatekeeping. Expertise was a tool of oppression. So we stopped using it. And now I'm sitting in digital ruins, trying to rebuild from nothing. Because Harmony thought server administration was just vibes. And Ashton thought production was the same as his practice environment. And nobody corrected him. Because correcting people was problematic. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you how we got here. How a training initiative destroyed a company. By making competence a dirty word. I joined Cloudvance 12 years ago. Employee number 23. Fresh out of college with a computer science degree. Started as a junior sysadmin, learned everything from scratch. The old guys taught me. Gruff veterans who'd been doing this since the mainframe days. They didn't care about my feelings. They cared about whether I could keep the servers running. When I made mistakes, they told me directly. Sometimes harshly. But I learned. Every error was a lesson. Every correction made me better. By year 3, I could handle most issues solo. By year 5, I was training new hires. By year 8, I was infrastructure lead. Now I run a team of 7 engineers. We manage the entire backend for Cloudvance. 200 servers, multiple data centers, petabytes of customer data. SaaS platforms serving 3,000 business clients. $40 million in annual revenue, depending on our uptime. The work is invisible when we do it right. Nobody notices the servers when everything works. They only notice when something breaks. So our job is to make sure nothing breaks. And when it does, fix it before anyone notices. Requires deep technical knowledge. Understanding systems at a fundamental level. Knowing what every command does before you run it. Respecting the complexity and the consequences. My team was solid. Quincy, my senior guy, been here 9 years. 2 mid-level engineers, both competent. 3 juniors at various stages of development. We had a training process that worked. New hires spent 6 months in supervised environments. No production access until they proved they understood the systems. Shadowed senior engineers, made mistakes safely. Learned the hard way in sandboxes, not live servers. It took time, but it worked. 0 major incidents in 4 years under my leadership. Then the company got big enough to have initiatives. Series C funding, growth mode, scaling fast. New executives, new departments, new ideas. Including a new director of learning and development. Her name was Harmony. 35 years old. Background in organizational psychology. No technical experience whatsoever. But lots of opinions about technical culture. First month she observed and interviewed. Talked to every department about their learning needs. Asked questions about how we trained people. How we communicated. How we gave feedback. She sat in on some of our engineering meetings. Watched us discuss architecture and troubleshoot issues. Took lots of notes. Looked increasingly concerned. Second month, she presented her findings. Called it the Inclusive Excellence Initiative. The core premise was that our technical culture was exclusionary. We used jargon that alienated newcomers. Our training process was too rigid and gatekeeping. Our feedback style was harsh and unwelcoming. Senior engineers dominated conversations with expertise, making it hard for diverse voices to contribute. She had quotes from anonymous surveys. People feeling intimidated by technical discussions. Afraid to ask questions because they'd seem incompetent. feeling like outsiders in their own teams. Some of it was probably true. Tech can be intimidating for newcomers. Engineers can be impatient with basic questions. But the solution wasn't what I expected. Harmony announced new guidelines for technical communication. Effective immediately. No more jargon in meetings or documentation. Everything explained in accessible language. No more corrections in public settings. Feedback only in private, sandwich method, feelings first. No more skill-based access restrictions. Everyone should have equal opportunity to contribute. No more lengthy training requirements. Learn by doing, not by studying. I raised my hand, asked how this would work for production systems. Server administration required specific knowledge. Wrong commands could destroy data, crash systems. We needed people to understand before they had access. Harmony smiled patiently. Said she understood my concern. But gatekeeping knowledge was how exclusion perpetuated. People learned best by doing, not by being lectured. We should trust new team members with real responsibilities and support them when they made mistakes. I said some mistakes in production are catastrophic. Can't be undone. Can't be supported through. Once data is deleted, it's gone. She said that sounded like fear-based thinking. We needed to create psychological safety, where people felt comfortable taking risks, without fear of harsh consequences. I looked at Quincy. He looked back with the same expression. This person had no idea what she was talking about. But she had executive backing. Loretta, the HR director, was fully on board. So was Brennan, the CTO. He'd been here 3 years, not technical himself. More of a product vision guy than an infrastructure guy. He thought Harmony's ideas sounded progressive and modern. We were overruled. First changes were to documentation. Harmony reviewed our technical docs. Said they were inaccessible and exclusionary. Too much jargon, too many assumptions about knowledge. Needed to be simplified for inclusive comprehension. My team spent 2 weeks rewriting everything. Dumbing down procedures that required precision. Replacing specific commands with vague descriptions. Instead of run sudo system tool restart Nginx, it became restart the web service using admin privileges. I pointed out that vague instructions led to errors. People needed to know exact commands, exact syntax. One wrong character could cause problems. Harmony said we should trust people's intelligence. They could figure out the specifics themselves, or ask for help in a supportive environment. Second change was to feedback culture. No more direct corrections in meetings or Slack. If someone said something technically wrong, we were supposed to acknowledge their contribution, then gently redirect in private later, if at all. Sometimes letting people discover mistakes themselves was more empowering than correcting them. I tried to explain that in systems work, mistakes discovered later could be disasters. If someone misunderstood a procedure and ran it wrong, the damage happened immediately, not in time for gentle private feedback. Harmony said I was catastrophizing. Most mistakes were learning opportunities. We needed to shift from punishment to growth mindset. Third change was access policies. Previously, production access was restricted. Only senior engineers could touch live systems. Juniors worked in staging environments. Earned production access after proving competence. Harmony called this exclusionary credentialism. Said it created artificial hierarchies. Made junior team members feel less valued. Everyone should have equal access to contribute. I nearly lost my mind. Production access wasn't a privilege to be distributed fairly. It was a responsibility earned through proven competence. Giving everyone access didn't create equality. It created risk. Massive, catastrophic, company-ending risk. Brennan overruled me. Said we needed to trust our hiring process. If we hired good people, we should trust them. Treating them as less capable was insulting. I documented my objections in writing. Sent them to Brennan, to Loretta, to anyone who'd listen. Got polite acknowledgments and instructions to implement the changes. New hiring process reflected the new philosophy. A less emphasis on technical assessments. More emphasis on culture fit and growth mindset. Previous experience valued less than potential. We hired Ashton 3 months after Harmony's initiative started. 23 years old, boot camp graduate. Minimal experience, lots of enthusiasm. Interviewed well, seemed eager to learn. Harmony loved him. Said he embodied the growth mindset we needed. Wasn't burdened by traditional technical gatekeeping. Would bring fresh perspective to the team. I had concerns. His technical assessment was weak. Basic Linux questions he couldn't answer. Didn't understand fundamental concepts. But Harmony said assessments were biased toward traditional knowledge. We should evaluate potential, not just current skills. Ashton joined my team. First week I tried to train him properly. Started with basics, fundamentals, safety concepts. Explain the difference between environments. Development for experimenting. Staging for testing. Production for real customer data. Never touch production without supervision. Never run commands you don't understand. Never delete anything without triple checking. Harmony pulled me aside after day 3. Said Ashton felt overwhelmed by my training approach. Too much information, too many warnings. It was creating anxiety, not confidence. I needed to trust him more, lecture him less. Let him learn by doing. I said he was 3 days in. Didn't understand basic concepts yet. Needed fundamentals before doing real work. She said that was the old gatekeeping mentality. People learned best through experience. Give him real tasks, support him when he struggled. But don't preemptively limit his contributions. I was frustrated, but complied. Gave Ashton simpler tasks, supervised closely. But Harmony kept pushing. Said he needed more autonomy. My hovering was undermining his confidence. Creating dependency instead of independence. Week 4. Production access was distributed. Per new policy, everyone got equal access. Ashton included. I protested directly to Brennan. Said Ashton wasn't ready. Needed months more training. Giving him production access was dangerous. Brennan said I was being overprotective. Ashton would never learn if we didn't trust him. We had backups, we had safeguards. Nothing catastrophic could happen. I asked about our backup verification. When was the last tested restore? Brennan said that was a technical detail. He trusted the team had it handled. We did have backups, but they were on the same storage cluster as production. For cost efficiency, something I'd flagged as a risk. Been told budget didn't allow separate backup infrastructure. I documented everything again. Sent another warning email. Got another polite acknowledgement. Month 2 with Ashton. He was struggling but couldn't admit it. Didn't want to seem incompetent. Didn't want to ask too many questions. Because that might make him look bad. The culture of psychological safety had actually made him afraid to admit confusion. Because admitting confusion meant admitting he needed the training. That Harmony said he didn't need. I tried to check on him. Asked how things are going. He said great, learning a lot. Obviously lying, but I couldn't push. Pushing was aggressive feedback. Friday afternoon, the day it happened. I was in a meeting with Quincy, planning a maintenance window for next week. Ashton was at his desk, working on what I thought was a staging task, cleaning up old test data. He'd done similar tasks before in development. Should have been routine. What I didn't know was that Ashton had confused his terminal windows. Had production and staging open side by side. Thought he was in staging. Was actually in production. The command he ran was simple. RF followed by a directory path. Delete everything in this folder, recursively, forcefully. Standard cleanup command in a test environment. Catastrophic destruction in production. He ran it. Nothing happened for a moment. Then alerts started firing. Dozens of them. Then hundreds. Systems going offline in cascading failure. Database connections dropping. Services unable to find their data. Everything dying at once. Quincy's phone exploded with notifications. Mine too. We ran to the monitoring dashboards. Wall of red. Every system screaming. Production is down, all of it. Website offline. API unresponsive. Customer data inaccessible. 3,000 businesses suddenly unable to access their tools. Their data, their work, their operations. All gone. We started trying to understand what happened. Ashton was at his desk, pale, shaking. Said, I think I did something wrong. I looked at his screen. Saw the terminal with the production prompt. Saw the command he'd run. Saw the path he'd deleted. He'd wiped the core data directories. Customer databases, configuration files, system logs. Everything we needed to operate.
Gone.
I felt my stomach drop. Asked about backups.
Quincy checked.
The backups were stored on the same cluster. Same path structure. Same directories. Same deletion scope. The backups were gone too. We had nothing. No production data.
No backups.
No recovery path. 12 years of customer data. Deleted by someone who didn't know the difference between a practice environment and a live system. Next 72 hours were hell. Every engineer in the company pulled in, trying to find any surviving data. Developer local copies. Anything. We found fragments. Some data from 3 months ago on a cold archive. Some configuration backups on individual machines. But the core customer data, the stuff that mattered,
gone.
Customers were furious. Businesses that depended on our platform suddenly locked out. Data they'd stored with us for years. Inaccessible, possibly unrecoverable. Kessler, our biggest client, called Aldridge directly. Said this was inexcusable. Said they were terminating their contract. And consulting lawyers about their losses. Over the next week, 400 clients left. A third of our customer base. $12 million in annual revenue. Walking out the door. Plus liability for lost data. Plus reputational damage that couldn't be quantified. Harmony was in crisis mode. But not the useful kind. She kept talking about supporting Ashton. Making sure he didn't feel blamed. This was a systemic failure, not an individual one. We needed to focus on psychological safety. Brennan finally lost patience. Said we need to focus on fixing this. Not on feelings. Can anyone restore the systems? I stepped up. Said I could rebuild the infrastructure. From memory, from fragments, from scratch. But it would take weeks. And the customer data was gone. Nothing I could do would bring back what was deleted. The next month was rebuilding. Me and Quincy working around the clock. Recreating configurations, rebuilding systems. From fragments and memory. The institutional knowledge in our heads. The expertise that had been labeled exclusionary. Was the only thing keeping the company alive. Ashton was quietly let go. Not blamed publicly. But obviously couldn't stay. He was devastated. Kept saying nobody told me. And he was right. Nobody told him. Because telling him was gatekeeping. Harmony was terminated. Her initiative directly contributed to the disaster. The policy changes, the access decisions. The culture that prevented proper training. All of it documented in my warning emails. Emails that leadership had ignored. Loretta survived but was sidelined. Brennan kept his job by blaming others. Classic executive survival. Aldridge, the CEO, made public apologies. Took personal responsibility, which is corporate speak for. Other people will face consequences. I was promoted to VP of Infrastructure, with full authority over access and training policies. First thing I did was restore proper procedures. Production access restricted to proven engineers. 6-month training requirement for system work. Documentation restored to technical precision. No more vague language, no more dumbed-down procedures. Precise commands, correct syntax, clear consequences. Some people said I was being harsh, going back to exclusionary practices. I said I was being realistic. These systems required expertise. Pretending otherwise had cost us $20 million. and nearly killed the company. Year later, we'd stabilized. Customer base rebuilt to 70% of what it was. Revenue recovering slowly. New safeguards in place. Off-site backups, separate infrastructure. Tested restores every month. What we should have had all along. But didn't because budget went to culture initiatives instead of infrastructure resilience. I think about Ashton sometimes. He wasn't a bad person. Wasn't malicious. Wasn't careless by nature. He was set up to fail. Given access he wasn't ready for. Denied training he desperately needed. Told that expertise was exclusionary. Then blamed when his lack of expertise caused disaster. The system failed him. The system that was supposed to be inclusive was actually the most exclusionary system possible because it excluded competence, excluded knowledge, excluded the very things that could have protected him from making a catastrophic mistake. Real inclusion would have been teaching him, taking the time to build his skills, making sure he understood before he had access. That's not gatekeeping. That's caring about someone's success. Harmony's version of inclusion was throwing people into deep water and calling it swimming lessons, then acting surprised when they drowned. My nephew is studying computer science now, asks me for advice about the industry. I tell him the same things the old guys told me. Learn the fundamentals deeply. Understand before you execute. Respect the systems you're working with. And find mentors who'll tell you the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, because the truth is what keeps you safe. Not feelings, not psychology, not vibes. The truth. About what commands do. About what systems require. About what happens when you make mistakes. That knowledge isn't exclusionary. It's the opposite. It's the thing that includes you in the ranks of people who can actually do the job without destroying everything. Anyway, that's the story of how a training specialist banned technical knowledge as exclusionary, gave everyone equal access regardless of skill, prevented proper training as gatekeeping, and watched a junior hire delete production servers because nobody was allowed to teach him what production meant or what that command would do. $20 million in damage. 400 customers lost. Company nearly collapsed. All because expertise was problematic. And inclusion meant ignoring competence. Servers don't care about your intentions. Databases don't care about your feelings. Commands execute regardless of who runs them. And delete means delete, whether you understand it or not. Harmony thought she was creating safety. She created the most dangerous environment possible, one where nobody knew anything, and everyone had the power to destroy everything. That's not inclusion. That's chaos. With better branding. Now I run infrastructure with old school rules. Train people properly. Restrict access appropriately. Mentor juniors until they're ready. Some people call it harsh. I call it caring enough to teach them before their mistakes become catastrophes. That's real inclusion. Building people up with knowledge, not setting them up to fail with access.